this computer. Okay. All right. All right. So this is the Bible Hangout on a new format. And this is pretty wonderful and amazing. Let's see my current slide. So what is that? Oh, it's just the slide itself. How about that? So, do I need to do the introduction? Let's just get into it. This is the Bible study for Up Church, and I'm Reverend Sherri James, the Senior Minister for Understanding Principles for Better Living Church in Inglewood, California. The question that we're asking tonight is, do you know how to grow your spiritual attention span? Do you know how to grow your spiritual attention span? And we're working with the text, Neville Goddard's The Neville Reader. The Neville Reader, and I believe this was edited. At least the foreword is by Mitch Horowitz, who is a Neville devotee. I didn't think I would find a modern day fan of Neville's bigger than me until I ran into Mitch Horowitz. Oh, tonight we are talking from the chapter on controlled reverie. Controlled reverie, and this is really about controlling your imagination. We're going to talk about that, and I'm looking forward to sharing that information. So our outline is pretty straightforward. I've got a few announcements. We've got opening prayer. We're going to talk about, do you know how to grow your spiritual attention span, and then putting your conscious mind in a passive state, and then Q&A. And this is a wonderful format. You're able to ask questions throughout, so feel free to unmute yourself if you want to put yourself on camera. I didn't It's not required, but you can put yourself on camera if you want to. That's available to you. You got to know your why. You know, through all of the hiccups. Let's see, we started on Google Hangout, then we went to Webinar Jam, then we went to YouTube Live, and now we're with Zoom. And you know, there's a certain amount of grittiness to sticking with an idea. And what I'm convinced of is that this information landing in your soul, you really getting that you are a spiritual being living in a spiritual world governed by spiritual laws. It's something that we say, we almost parrot it because it's been said so often. But when that really dawns in you, it changes everything. I'm in the middle of finishing a really awesome book called The Power of Habit. Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit. And in this book, it talks about habits and how habits shift your life. And one habit can essentially change everything. I'll give you an example from a company standpoint. So Alcoa is an aluminum company, and they had a a pretty bad accident track record. Their profits were slipping, and they brought in O'Neill. I can't remember his first name. They brought in this guy O'Neill, and so he came in and started concentrating on driving down the number of accidents. And so he set a policy that if there was an accident anywhere in the company, and Alcoa is an international company, it's not just here in the U.S., it's in Mexico and other foreign countries. If there's an accident, he needs to know about it within 24 hours of it happening, and he needs to know what happened, why it happened, and what we're doing to make sure it never happens again. And if you didn't comply, you were fired. So it began to like build this culture of reporting. But that one habit shifted everything because it communicated to the employees that they were important. It made safety the priority. So whereas the company had always been at odds with unions, now the unions were happy because now there was this priority on the people. It in the most unexpected way, it ended up driving up profits to enormous record levels. And so one idea can change everything. And so the idea that you could really grasp that you are a spiritual being living in a spiritual world governed by spiritual laws literally has the ability to change everything. And so that's my dream for the Bible Hangout, that this idea just sticks. Now, The Bible Hangout is free, but it does cost to produce it. And so if this has blessed you, would you consider supporting the Bible Hangout? And you can make a gift at revsherri.com. And I thank you in advance for your support, and I thank you for just being generous with this work. I'm also available for spiritual mentoring. I work with people one-on-one. I do a lot of just personal study, personal work, just really improving and honing my craft. And I'm getting really good. Let's just say that. And I don't mean that in any kind of boastful way, but just a fact in terms of being able to help people make changes in their experience and changes that last. That's the work that I do. And so if you are interested in becoming the person whose dreams come true, if you're interested in having that magical life that you've heard some Christians talk about, give me a call. Give me a call. I'm especially interested in business owners because I want to help you integrate these spiritual principles into how you do your business. So I would love to work with you. We're on a new platform. We are now on Zoom cloud meetings, and seeing I got a few folk here. It looks like we're doing okay. Looks like we're doing okay. Everybody getting in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the new platform. And so what will happen is that this is recorded tonight. It's going to download to my computer. These are just with back-end logistics. It's going to download to my computer, and then it's going to be uploaded to YouTube. That's a fairly long process, so that probably won't happen until tomorrow morning, meaning the download and upload is going to start tonight, but it probably won't finish until tomorrow morning. So the video will be on YouTube, and so if you miss it or you want to go back and watch it, you will be able to take a look at it on YouTube. The scripture for this evening and for this series is, "Then he touched their eyes, saying, according to your faith, let it be to you." And this is Matthew 9:29. Then he touched their eyes, saying, according to your faith, let it be to you. And my hope is that this lesson touches that inner spiritual eye, that it reaches somewhere inside of you and turns on the awareness that you are more than just a human being, that you are more than just this bag of bones, but that you are a spiritual giant in the making, and that there are untold kingdoms that want to be expressed through you, and you will endeavor to do the work to let it out. And I just give thanks and praise that God is using this platform to touch men and women all over the world, to reach them and to help them to reach their goals. And I give thanks for however this is a blessing to someone, and I release it, and I release my own desires for it, and I free it to be what God wants it to be. In the name and nature of Jesus, it is so. And so it is. And amen. All right. Let's dig in. How to grow your spiritual attention span. So the name of this chapter is Controlled Reverie. But what he's with control is about how do you steady your imagination on a singular idea. And the reason I talk about spiritual attention span is because, I don't know, controlled reverie seems too abstract for me. But I thought this was a way that you would be able to relate to it. So Jordan has started his new swim lessons, and I'm so excited. He's doing such a great job. I'm so proud of him. What's happening is that the lesson is 20 minutes, and the coach talks to me in between while he's coaching Jordan, letting me know how he's doing, and he's really impressed with him. But one of the things that he said is that these lessons, I'd really like for them to be longer. But unfortunately, this age group doesn't have the attention span for it to be any longer. And so, for 15 minutes, he's on it. Whatever coach asks, he's doing it. That last 5 minutes is like this grown man barking at him, like, kick, point your toes, stop, put the pool toys down. And it really hit me as I was preparing for last week's sermon that our attention span is like that in a different way, meaning that the method for receipt of prayer is simple. Ask for it, then abide in the feeling of the realized prayer. That's it. The, it's not. It doesn't get any. It's no. It's like, well, how do you get your prayers answered? Ask for it, believe you have it. That's it. Ask for it, believe you have it. That's it. I mean, that's what the scripture says, right? Ask in faith, and it shall be yours. Whatever you ask in my name, believe that you receive it, and it's yours. It repeats itself in different ways, but the gist is the same. And what I realized is that I think we were pretty decent at asking. I don't know how decent we are at abiding in the feeling of what it is that we say we want. And so it's like we're like that 4-year-old that we're good for that first 15 minutes. Those last 5 minutes, everything falls apart because we don't have the spiritual attention span to hold a feeling long enough until it gets clothed with skin. To hold a feeling long enough until it gets clothed with skin. And so the need for physical proof is so strong that instead of abiding in the feeling of what we're asking for, it all falls apart and we start to scheme on the human level to try to get what we want, or we give up saying that, well, maybe it's not God's will, or, but we start coming up with excuses for why we're not having what we say we want to have. When in actuality, we don't have the attention span to hold a feeling long enough until it becomes flesh. Until it becomes flesh. Got a comment. Oh, I love this comment. Yvonne says, abiding in the feeling is the hardest part. For sure, I'm being challenged in that area. And Andrew says, we get distracted so easy. Yes, that's basically it. We get distracted. And so I want to talk about 2 techniques tonight to help you be able to get past that, because you don't have to live in that space. You don't have to live in that space. So the first thing is just being able to measure your attention span. And there was this, I don't even know if I'll be able to find it. Oh, maybe, you know what? It's in the blog post. What am I saying? So I found this article when I was looking at the attention span, and they actually have a way for you to measure your attention span. It's a 5-minute test. I posted it in the blog post, and it asks questions like, do you get distracted easily by background noise and people's conversations? Yes, sometimes, no. How often are you late for an appointment? How often do you catch yourself daydreaming at work? And my thought was, we need a measure meant for your spiritual attention span, right? So when I started rewriting some of the questions, I was like, well, so, do you start worrying easily after you just prayed? How often do you worry or fret during the day about something you prayed about? How often do you catch yourself complaining to others about something after you prayed about it, right? Do you jump from desire to desire, right? Because you just can't seem to focus long enough to manifest one desire. So your spiritual attention span is important, because what's happening when you begin to elongate your attention span, right, is that it's the way that we lay down new beliefs. Your spiritual attention span is important because it's the key to establishing new beliefs, which allow you to have more good. So humans lead with belief. Everything that you do grows out of a belief that you hold, period, point blank. If you don't believe it, you don't even try it. It's something in you, even if you going, that's why I say you only need a mustard seed. If you have enough belief to get started, then you got some belief. But there's some things that you don't even have enough belief to get started. So humans lead with belief. And everything that we do grows from a belief that we hold within. So we lay new beliefs, and this is key. We lay new beliefs into the subconscious by abiding in the feeling of what we prayed about. Hear that. We lay new beliefs in our subconscious by abiding in the feeling of what we've prayed about. So from a practical standpoint, I pray for a vehicle, right? A luxury vehicle, enough space that my child is way in the back, not a little sports car situation I got going on now. Four doors, not two, because I didn't realize how what a challenge that would be getting a big old child in and out of that. What else? You start to label it, right? Then it's as you sit in the feeling, as you abide in the feeling of what it's going to be like to have the realized prayer, belief begins to get built around it. And so your attention span is how long can you hold the feeling? It's the key. It's the key to establishing new beliefs. And for most of us, we don't have that attention span. And so our belief system doesn't change until one who does have it changes it. Case in point, this past weekend, Black Panther opened. So Black Panther opened, that is an amazing feat. Raymond says finding the feeling can be challenging as well. That's where using the imagination comes in. Right. Black Panther opened, shattered all kinds of records. The beauty of Black Panther doing what it did is that, and this is, coming from being in the industry, that it shattered the myth of what was possible for Black films. No longer could you say Black films can't travel overseas. It wasn't just a belief of the studio, but it was a belief of the people. It was an excuse that was given by the studio. It was an excuse that was given by the studio. It was an excuse that was given by the studio because they didn't want to put that kind of money behind those kinds of stories. And it became a belief that people of color walked with. I remember coming into the industry and hearing people say, yeah, but our films don't travel overseas. It was just kind of a given until one who was willing to believe something different proved something different. But you've got to be willing to sit in the feeling until the expression manifests. You've got to be willing to sit in the feeling until the expression manifests. Can we do that? That's the work, right? That's the work. And so the spiritual attention span is important because you have to have a way to relax in and sit in the belief until it puts some skin on it. And most people can't do that. And so I think it's why we idolize those who do it, because it seems like a superhuman feat when in actuality, it's just what all of us are able to do. All of us have the ability to do it. We just have to be willing to train ourselves to do it. So you can change anything if you can first change your mind. You can change anything if you can first change your mind. One of my favorite quotes comes from George Bernard Shaw. He says, progress is impossible without change. And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. If you can't change your mind, you don't have the ability to change anything. There were people, me included, in the entertainment industry who came along and said, there's got to be a solution to our movies traveling overseas. But only he who believed made it so. I hope y'all hearing me. I hope you're hearing me. I got so many beautiful lessons this weekend, just watching all of this excitement around Black Panther and just all that was happening, because I remember the mindset that I was in when I came in the industry. And I was one of those people that felt like it's got to be possible, because the movies that are going overseas didn't always travel overseas. Somebody had to go overseas and sell them. They had to go figure out the language and the exchange rates, and somebody had to figure that out. So, but can you believe enough until it gets flesh on it? Only he who believes. All things are possible for the one who believes. And so what Neville says, and I think it's so powerful, is that everyone is amenable to the same psychological laws which govern the ordinary hypnotic state. And what he means by hypnotic state is when you put your conscious mind This awareness mind in a passive state. That's the hypnotic state. It's where it's at bay, and so all the powers of the subconscious are exposed so that you can directly speak to it, right? Everyone is amenable. Anybody that if you put that passive, that conscious mind into a passive state, you have the ability to speak to it directly, period. That's just how it works. And so what's happening in the hypnotic state is that you're being it's not just being unaware, but you're unaware objectively. But the conscious mind is put to sleep, but the subconscious powers are exposed so that they can be reached by suggestion. So you have the ability, you're not you're consciously aware, but your attention is withdrawn from the external world. Let me get this comment. Alita says Wesley Snipes tried out being Black Panther in the 90s but couldn't get back. Exactly. It still comes back to the belief. We want the external reasons to be the reason something did not happen. But if there's not enough belief, then it won't be done. If there's not enough belief, it won't be done. And the question is, what are you willing to raise your hand and say, God, I'm willing to be the vessel through which this expresses. I'm willing to be the one. Flow through me in this way. What are you willing to raise and raise your hand and say, I'm willing to abide in this feeling, God, until you press this out through me, because I know that it's so. And I know that it can be so. What are you willing? Willingness, right? Because the willingness is that when you're willing, then I will figure out how to expand my spiritual attention. When I decided, I was working in a company. I've actually moved on, but working in a company, and I had to figure out, like, I'm going to be successful, period. And all of a sudden I was like, well, how could I figure out how to get this work done? And I was like, well, let me get a timer. And that's when I got my little timer and changed how I work. But it started with me making a decision to be different. You can change anything if you can first change your mind. And so a good measurement of your spiritual attention span is the length of time you can put your conscious mind in a passive state. A good measurement of your spiritual attention span is the length of time you can put your conscious mind in a passive state. How long can you keep your mind in a passive state? Meaning that you're not asleep, right? Because we can, I've done that. I tried that this morning. I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to imagine the future. I'm going to go back to this vision that God gave me for all of these, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds publishing books and, writing CDs and traveling all over the world and getting up out of wheelchairs and throwing down canes and then the alarm went off again. So how long can you stay in that passive state where you're not paying attention to the outside world? Your mind is not running all over the place, but you're just present and feeding to your subconscious mind a feeling that you actually want. You can change anything if you can first change your mind. Make your suggestions with conviction and confidence. Make your suggestions with conviction and confidence. So this is what Neville says. He says, within the circle of action, every word subjectively spoken awakens objectively what it affirms. So hear that again. Within the circle, every word has a circle of action. The word love has a circle of action. The word peace has a circle of action. Within its circle of action, right? It's like an energy, right? Every word has energy, right? They said words are things. That's why you don't want just any words spoken around you. Maya Angelou, she would put people out of her house if they would say negative things, because it was like, this gets in the wall. Andrew says we can move any mountain, tell it, cast itself into the sea, and the mountain will be compelled to obey. If we believe and nothing is impossible. Thank you, Father. I believe that it is now happening powerfully through me now. Yes, 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 yes. So the words have energy and they have a circle of action. Meaning it's like you have water, right? And you or a bucket of water or whatever, or ocean, and you drop a pebble in the ocean, or it has a ripple, right? It has a ripple, and depending on the weight and the mass that's dropped in the ocean determines how big that ripple is, right? Determines how big it is. So words are like that. They're dropped in the soil of our consciousness, our consciousness in the soil. They're dropped in the consciousness, and so they have a circle of action. Within the circle of its action, every word, subjectively spoken, every word that you say from your heart, every word that comes from the heart. So you work with an idea and it really lands in you what's possible, right? Every word subjectively spoken, every word that comes from the heart, not from the head, objectively awakens whatever it affirms. So it awakens. So the words, that's why the scripture says, out of the heart come the issues of life. Everything that comes out of the heart is the subjective mind. Everything that comes out of the heart awakens objectively whatever it affirms. And so there's an example. This is from Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit. And this is an amazing account. Oh, let me tell you. This is an amazing account of Michael Phelps, and he chronicles him. Now, this book is about habits, but you'll get why I'm including this example here. So what's happening with Michael Phelps is that this coach gets him when he is a child. So this is what it says. When Michael Phelps' alarm clock went off at 6:30 a.m. on the morning of August 13, 2008, he crawled out of bed in the Olympic Village in Beijing and fell right into his routine. He pulled on a pair of sweatpants and walked to breakfast. Just hang on, baby. He pulled on a pair of sweatpants and walked to breakfast. He had already won 3 gold medals earlier that week, giving him 9 in his career, and had 2 races that day. By 7 a.m., he was in the cafeteria eating his regular race day menu of eggs, oatmeal, and 4 energy shakes, the first of more than 6,000 calories he would consume over the next 16 hours. Let's skip down. Phelps had started swimming when he was 7 years old to burn off some of the energy that was driving his mom and teachers crazy. When a local swimming coach named Bob Bowman saw Phelps's long torso, big hands, and relatively short legs, which offered less drag in the water. I got a comment here. Hold on. Yes, Alita says, would you say that the heart is a second brain? Yes, I would. Yes, yes, yes. He knew Phelps could become a champion, but Phelps was emotional. He had trouble calming down before races. His parents were divorcing and he had problems coping with stress. Bowman purchased a book of relaxation exercises and asked Phelps' mom to read them aloud every night. The book contained a script. Tighten your right hand into a fist and release it. Imagine the tension melting away. That tensed and relaxed each part of Phelps' body before he fell asleep. So we've done that. We do that. Did we do that with Handbook of Positive Prayer, where she goes through this exercise where you tighten everything and loosen it up, and you do that up and down the body through every area of the body when you tighten it and loosen it up. Bowman believed that for swimmers, the key to victory was creating the right routine. Phelps, Bowman knew, had a perfect physique for the pool. That said, everyone who eventually competes at the Olympics has perfect musculature. Bowman could also see that Phelps, even at a young age, had a capacity for obsessiveness that made him an ideal athlete. Then again, all elite performers are obsessive. What Bowman could give Phelps, however, what would set him apart from other competitors, were habits that would make him the strongest mental swimmer in the pool. He didn't need to control every aspect of Phelps' life. All he needed to do was target a few specific habits that had nothing to do with swimming and everything to do with creating the right mindset. He designed a series of behaviors that Phelps could use to become calm and focused before each race, to find those tiny advantages that in a sport where victory can come in milliseconds would make all the difference. When Phelps was a teenager, for instance, at the end of each practice, Bowman would tell him to go home and watch the videotape. Watch it before you go to sleep and when you wake up. The videotape wasn't real. Rather, it was a mental visualization of the perfect race. Each night before falling asleep and each morning after waking up, Phelps would imagine himself jumping off the block and in slow motion, swimming flawlessly. He would visualize his strokes, the walls of the pool, his turns, and the finish. He would imagine the wake behind his body, the water dripping off his lips as his mouth cleared the surface, what it would feel like to rip off his cap at the end. He would lie in bed with his eyes shut and watch the entire competition, the smallest details again and again until he knew each second by heart. During practices, when Bowman ordered Phelps to swim at race speed, he would shout, "Put in the videotape!" And Phelps would push himself as hard as he could. It almost felt anticlimactic as he cut through the water. He had done this so many times in his head that by now it felt rough. But it worked. He got faster and faster. Eventually, all Bowman had to do before a race was whisper, "Get the videotape ready." And Phelps would settle down and crush the competition. When you take that little bit of 5 minutes, that little bit of time before you go to bed, and a little bit of time after you wake up, and simply sit in the completion of whatever is your most closest held goal, what happens is you begin to build belief in yourself and you begin to make it a reality. When you see what you want in your mind's eye and you make it as real as possible for yourself. So remember what he was doing. He was imagining all the details. What does the water feel like? What does it feel like when I rip my cap off at the end? What do my turns feel like? What does it feel like to come out of the blocks? All those things, when you make it as real as possible for yourself, you awaken it as a reality in your experience. You awaken it as a reality in your experience. And so what happens is that this nightly videotape that Michael Phelps is running in his mind in the morning and at night, there's a confidence and a conviction that's building around it. It may not have even been there the first time he thought about it, but if you persist, just what the mind does naturally, you begin to build a conviction, a confidence about it. We do this in the opposite direction all the time. Somebody flips us off, says something the wrong way, and we start thinking about it. And we're thinking about it. And then we have created an entire scenario that may have no basis in reality in terms of what they meant or how they intended it, but we have built a dialogue. So we know how to do this. I just want us to do it in a way that's positive for us. But we've built an entire scenario about what they meant when they said X, Y, and Z. And we just, and the more we roll it through our minds and play it over and over again, that conviction and confidence about it builds, because that's just what happens when the mind holds something long enough. Make sure I don't have any ideas or comments. So understand that belief is built and you can do it. Belief is built. You know, when we look at, I'm thinking, well, you pick whoever you think is somebody that's enormously confident, right? And that they seem fearless and they seem to just go after what they want and to do it. And you look at that and it just they seem so self-assured and so self-confident. Someone that I look at that makes me think of that is because he's such an experimenter of life, is Tim Ferriss. And I watch him in interviews and just kind of observe his style. Like, God, he's confident. Like, where does all that confidence come from? Oh, thank you, Yvonne. She said, Sherri James, I appreciate that. I'm trying to build some more confidence. I got some techniques that I pulled out of this lesson that I want to share with you guys. But I watch how confident he is, and just the things he goes out and does, and it's, there are other people that are out there, and I look at the things that they're doing with their channels, and I'm like, oh my God, I should just go and do it, and then it doesn't happen. But the belief, right? Neville says, bold assertion by you while you are in a partly subjected state, this is the conscious mind is relaxed, awakens what you affirm. Bold assertion, right? Self-confidence on your part and the thorough belief in the truth of your mental assertion are all that is needed to produce results. So you want to create a mental videotape of you achieving your deepest held beliefs and goals and values. And then, what do you want to accomplish? What's on that list, and can you create the experience of you doing the thing you desire? Will you play that videotape in your mind every day and every night while also working in the physical to achieve that goal? And can you see yourself in slow motion achieving the thing you hold closest to your heart? If you are in school, right, you see yourself on that graduation stage and you feel the feeling of walking across that platform and them handing you the diploma and then taking that the tassel and switching from one side to the next and feeling all of the feelings and just and go to bed every morning and every night. I don't care if you have money problems in school, if you have time problems because you're managing children in school, or illness, or if you play that movie every morning, every night, then the practical means by which it will come about will produce themselves in you. And so you can do that. And the thing is that choose a worthy goal because it's going to work. Choose a worthy goal. I remember my mom telling the story of tripling her income after my parents divorce. And she said, shoot, if I'd known it would happen so quickly, I would have asked for more. And it's going to work. So choose a worthy goal. If you want to choose something just to prove that you can do it, go ahead. But, if you're going to make God your partner, and I think that you are, because that's why you're on this broadcast, in this class, then you got to make your plans larger. Make them big. Age is immaterial. Age means nothing to God. He did not check your birth certificate. There was only a requirement that there had not been a death certificate. So you don't have one of those. So you good, right? That God did not check your bank account. So you good, right? Whatever it is, Dr. Tara Wright Trent, who I think is phenomenal. She wrote a book called The Awakened Woman. When she wrote her dreams and she buried them in the ground, she would go and she would sit on the mound where they were buried and she would visualize experiencing them. And she dreamed of getting in a plane and flying from Zimbabwe to the U.S. And she didn't even know what a plane looked like. She knew it existed. She didn't know what it looked like. She'd never been on a plane and never seen a plane. You don't need to know how it looks. You just need to sit in the feeling and allow God to put some skin around it. And so just is being willing. And so the mental rehearsal of the videotape that you run every night and every morning, what happens is that as you do that, your spiritual attention span expands. And the door gets open for greater belief, because as you are holding the idea in mind, as you're playing the videotape, belief is just getting packed in to that subconscious mind. It's just getting packed in. And so well, anyway, that's it. Do it. Don't just hear this lesson. Actually do this lesson. Really, really do this lesson. It's gonna work. This is a guarantee. Like, if you do it, all you'll be doing is telling me what happened for you, not that it did not work. That's how potent this is. Grow your attention span through the right mental conversation. Okay, let me be clear. So this is one of the most effective means for growing your spiritual attention span, is that you have a conversation in yourself with another person. I got a comment. Hold on. Yvonne says, I need this desperately. Yes, yes, yes. Let's do it. That's what I said. If we just do this book with everything else that we've looked at, if we just do this book and the stuff that he has here, game over. Game over. So Neville says a mental conversation with the subjective image of another person, right? So you bring to mind somebody in your mind's eye must be in a manner which does not express the slightest doubt as to the truth of what you hear and say. So you're having a conversation. So um, uh, um, maybe you're talking to your mom, or maybe you're talking to your best friend, or maybe you're talking to your husband or your wife, but you're having a conversation with someone that you would have this type of conversation with, and you are relaying to them what you did, and you hear them say, "Oh my God, I am really impressed. Wow, you did that," or whatever. But what you do is that you represent in your mind the completion of the goal, and you're having a conversation not as something that you're pursuing, but as something that you've achieved. So now here's the thing. We already know how to do this, right? How many times have you caught yourself having a verbal fight with a coworker or your spouse in your head? And you literally rehearse your side of the conversation, their side of the conversation, and you hear yourself saying all the sharp and pithy things that prove you know how to bring a clap back, you know. So we're gonna just shift that energy just a little bit, and we're gonna have mental conversations that prosper, right? And so again, you bring to mind that desire that you want to have. You want to represent it in your mind as a conversation that you would have with somebody that you know, giving you a positive reaction to the realization of your desire, right? And so you might not believe the conversation in the beginning. And I want to make sure you understand that that's okay. You might not believe the conversation the first time you tried it. I would bet that the first time Michael Phelps saw himself winning the race in his mind, that he didn't believe it that much. I would bet that the first time he saw that, it didn't, the videotape was like, oh, this is a good exercise. I'm going to do what coach told me to do because I trust coach. So you might not believe the conversation the first time you try it, but if you persist, your belief in the reality of that conversation will build. And so you grow your attention span through right mental conversations. Sometimes, and the reason the conversation is so good is because it's active. It gives the mind something to look at and something to do. The challenge with I'm just going to visualize, I'm going to see some images or whatever, is that there's nothing to anchor the mind. But a conversation you can have because you already do that. And so you have this conversation in your mind with someone post realization of whatever it is that you say you want. Now, the thing is that you can trust that your subconscious mind is always going to do its job. You don't ever have to worry about the subconscious doing its job. So whatever you suggest with confidence is law to the subjective mind. It is under obligation to objectify that which you mentally affirm. It is under obligation. So you don't have to worry. It's going to happen. So what we have to do is to be intentional with the ideas that we allow to be suggested to us. I've said this, with reading magazines and consuming other media, that there's nothing wrong with those channels of expression. Let me say that. It depends on where you're going and what you're trying to get to. Can you afford to consume that kind of information? Is there enough bandwidth in you? My feeling is that there's not. Is there enough bandwidth in you to consume what would be your guilty pleasure? Again, everybody has to decide what's right for them and what trade-off they're willing to make. What I'm suggesting is that you have to be highly intentional about what you consume and what you bring in, because what you bring in is going to manifest in some degree in you. And so the other piece of this is that you need a nightly practice of forgiveness. You need a nightly practice of forgiveness. So we're in the midst of Lent with Up Church, and it's the most amazing thing you ever experienced. I hope you guys are doing the Lenten journey. It is awesome. off the chain. We are literally walking people step by step through the activity of creating their morning routine. And when it hit me, the fullness of what we were doing a couple of days ago, it was like, oh my God, we're about to blow the lid off this thing. Because I know as someone who is very dedicated to her morning routine, what that has done in my experience and how that has grown me. And so walking people step by step over the course of 46 days to creating their own morning routine, game, it's that's it. It's a game changer. It's a game changer because you're talking about programming yourself for God at the top of your day. Everything else flows after that. Nothing else matters after that because you got it. It's like working out in the morning. Yeah, you want to eat right through the rest of the day, but if you slip up, you worked out this morning. You bought some extra calories with your workout in the gym. So you don't. In addition to having a rock solid top of your day, you also need a rock solid bottom of your day. And part of the bottom of your day needs to be a nightly practice of forgiveness. And essentially, you need to lift up whoever needs to be lifted up, whether that's you or somebody else. And there's a phrase that I gave. I'm reading the blog post here. It says, "Write and or say aloud 5 times." I like writing and reading it aloud, but you pick either or. Insert the person's name. I bless you. I love you. I forgive you. I release you. I bless you. I love you. I forgive you. I release you. Then, before you finish, you speak directly to God. God, if there's anyone else from my past or present that I need to forgive, whether I remember them or not, I now do so. I bless them. I love them. I forgive them and I release them into your care, knowing that you will work with them in whatever way is best. And if there is anyone from my past or present who needs to forgive me, including myself, they do so now. And we are all free to experience a higher and greater good in our lives. This is make this nightly. Let me tell you why. Because what's happening is that you're freeing up that energy. So sometimes you have that what's interfering with you being able to lay down new beliefs is you ain't got no energy for new beliefs. Because all your energy is wrapped up in a grudge, or all your energy is wrapped up in some resentment or whatever. And it's like, let me forgive you because I want what God wants for me. I want all the good stuff. Okay. I want all the good stuff that God has for me. I want all the good, and I want none of the bad stuff, which means that I got to let you go because I don't want you producing in my consciousness anymore. So I free you in peace. I wish you spiritual peace. Real dominion is found in mastering your subconscious. This is the deal. Control of the subconscious is dominion over all. And I mean all things. Excuse me. If you do not learn to master your subconscious, then your belief moves with the collective conscious. Meaning that Black Panther came out and broke the record that it broke. It didn't become a belief for you in a real way that it could be done until Black Panther broke those records. So if you never learn to master your subconscious, then you're always waiting for the world to agree that something can be done before it's something that can be done in you. And I don't know about you, but I want to be among the trailblazers. I want to be among the big believers in the world, to believe big. And what that means is that I must do the work, the painstaking work, to understand how to master my subconscious mind. That means that I've got to get methodical with it. And so what that might look like, this is a way to go, right? I'm not saying this is the way to go, but this came to me, so I'm throwing it out there for you because I'm going to do it, is start with 60 seconds. I want 60 seconds of really feeling the fullness of the achieved dream. You know, I might set the timer for 5 minutes, but I only need 60 of those 5 minutes for that block of time to be considered a win. And then I mark that down in my journal. Same way that I would write down workouts that I'm doing and tracking the workouts that I'm doing. Then the next night, once I felt like I really mastered 60 quality seconds, then I bump it up and I'm gonna get 120 quality seconds. But again, what I'm doing is I am methodically expanding my spiritual attention span because I'm interested in demonstrating on a big level. I'm interested in demonstrating on a level when I look. I'll just say it because it only matters what I believe in my mind. But when I see T.D. Jakes, Joel Osteen, Joyce Meyer, Billy Graham, Carlton Pearson, I see Sherri James. So it's worth it to me to get a little notebook, right? And mark in there, I did 60 seconds tonight, 60 quality seconds tonight. And then when I've mastered that 60 seconds, 120 seconds. And then 180 seconds. And then 240 seconds. And then 300 seconds. I'm adding, whatever, you know what I'm saying. But I'm getting up to 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. And I'm tracking myself. I'm writing it down. I'm not just leaving this to chance. It's that important. I believe that what God has in me is that important that I'm willing to get that methodical with it, to let it out into expression. And what I have observed, and unless I see something different, but what I have observed with all of the high achievers and high performers and results-oriented people is that they're meticulous about the little things that they do. That it's God is in the details. God is in the details. And so the key to mastering your world lies in mastering your subconscious. And what he says is that control of the subconscious is accomplished through control of your beliefs. Well, the only way to control your beliefs is to expand that attention span. There's no other way. And the thing about beliefs is that, or without a healthy attention span, is that you don't even have the capacity to introduce new beliefs because you can't hold the feeling long enough. You have no stamina. You have no spiritual stamina. So the first thing that comes in from the outside world gets your attention because you ain't got no spiritual stamina. Anything can grab your attention. Something that my one of my spiritual teachers, Reverend Dr. Charles O. Brown, who used to be the assistant minister at Upchurch years ago, he said that what happens with your attention, I was looking for it because I wrote it down, but I don't see it immediately. That when you're talking about this state of controlled reverie, this state of like the passive conscious mind, that it's not that you don't hear the bird chirping or that you don't hear the workmen working or whatever. It's that it does not have your attention. And so that you have gained such mastery over your attention that you're choosing that nothing gets to just pull your attention. Yes, you reduce distractions and all of that while you're working, but more importantly, you have control over your attention. And so nothing gets to pull you, but that takes time. That takes practice. I shouldn't say time. That takes practice in order to develop that kind of spiritual focus, that kind of spiritual stamina. And so as you develop your spiritual attention span, that means that you can hold a feeling, and the longer you can hold it, it becomes real for you. It becomes something that you believe. It becomes true for you. And then you don't have to force yourself to believe it because it just is true for you. There were a couple of comments. Any question? Alita says, so are you saying feel with imagination, or is it just holding the belief? Well, I'm saying that this is what feeling through your imagination is. Belief forms naturally. There's nothing that we have to do to form belief. Belief it's a natural function of the mind. We are belief making organisms, and whatever you see long enough, meaning whatever, as far as your attention, whatever has your attention, you begin to form belief around it. You don't have to make yourself believe. And so if you hold something in mind long enough, belief begins to wrap itself around it. You begin to believe in it and believe it into expression. Andrea says, living in the end, feel what it would feel like if it were already done. Yes. Yes. And I'm saying that time yourself. Keep a record. The same way that you would track a workout plan, track this plan. So now it's time to do something big. You know, will you commit to growing your attention, your spiritual attention span? And then before you move to your next task, because you know we all have lives of going to bed or whatever, take 5 minutes to think through what you're going to run on your videotape. Like make that your priority. It's like, so what am I? Just build a videotape. Just start working with this stuff. Don't say, oh my God, I'm going to get to this. I'm going to start that tomorrow night. No. Tonight. Do it tonight. Take 5 minutes. What are you going to put on your videotape? And then just run it. And this will be uploaded on YouTube tomorrow morning. So you definitely will have the ability to go back and watch this again. Thank you guys for tonight. What a interesting format. All right. Any questions before we wrap out? No? Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Any other question? Any questions? Any area that needs clarity or that wasn't clear? Or... Yvonne says, thank you for clarity on this chapter. Yes, this is Neville is my guy. So I'm grateful for him. I just love and appreciate him. I can't say enough good things about him. I could study him all day long, all year long. So the next one is the law of thought transmission. I do want to say this because I intentionally skipped over some of this stuff. He does a lot of talking about the effect that you can have. Hang on, Jordan. Go ahead, baby. Use the bathroom. He does a lot of talking about the effect that you can have on another person's consciousness. And I purposely skipped over that because it just wasn't something that I wanted to really dig into. But what I can tell you is that there's a book that I have, The Road to Truth. I don't see it immediately. The Road to Truth, Sherri Evans. Oh, here it is. This is an excellent book, excellent history book on New Thought. That she does this incredible excavation on New Thought, and she gets back into Warren Felt Evans, and I mean those guys. They were doing some incredible things, and this was during the time before modern science was where it was, right? Good, baby. Good, very good. Proud of you. I was trying to see if I had it underlined because it blew my mind when I read it. It was just pure fire. Um, I may not be able to find it easily. Anyway, in this, uh, so he was talking about what you could do with another person, and there were all these experiments that were happening with the what they call the mind cure movement, and they were experimenting with being able to impact another person through you just thinking about them. And I think it was Warren Felt Evans, if I'm not mistaken, who said 69 to 74, who said that you could be 5 miles across town and just me thinking about you, I could throw you into a cold sweat. And it just was like, like they were really experimenting. And part of what was happening, Aaliyah says that part sounds like witchcraft to me. Right, exactly. That's why I had to just step away from some of that. But they were experimenting with this, and part of what was happening was that they were looking to heal themselves. You know, when you would walk in, I mean, medical science is just so much more advanced now. We don't like we take it for granted, right? Because medical science is where it is today. But at that point, that wasn't the case. That just wasn't how things were set up. I was thinking I could find. I'm still trying to search for it while I'm talking. Um, anyway, that it just wasn't where it was today. And so what would happen is that you would go in to see a doctor and you're like, you know what, I can't do anything for you, but I know this woman, Mary Baker Eddy, if you could get to her, she might be able to help you. And so this mind cure movement, this predates Mary Baker Eddy, but this mind cure movement, they were using their minds to heal their body. And so they were experimenting on themselves, on each other, and even if you read some of Neville, listen to some of Neville's stuff on YouTube, you'll hear him talking about holding someone in mind that you're praying for and seeing them and representing them in your mind in the way that you want them to. And they don't even need to know it. So you may know someone that's dealing with a health challenge, that in your mind, you bring them in your mind and you begin to suggest to them that they are healed. And provided that there is no doubt in you, it will work. I just didn't want to delve into that because that's a whole other road that it's like, to not even go down. But I want to finish the thought about Mary Baker Eddy. So Phineas P. Quimby, when he found the mind cure movement, he felt like he had found the healing secrets of Jesus. And so he was the first person that we know that codified what they were doing in the mind cure movement and what was happening in the transcendentalist movement. And he married those two things together because the transcendentalists believed that there was a higher knowledge than just the rational reasoning of the mind, but they weren't necessarily trying to heal their bodies. And the mind cure movement was not inside of any religious system. And so he's the first person that brought those two things together. And he had 4 students in 1 year that passed through his office that became the pioneers of what we think of today as New Thought. So Mary Baker Eddy, Warren Felt Evans, Julius Seabury, and his wife, Annette Seabury. And those 4 people became really the key players in Mary Baker Eddy founded Christian Science, taught Emma Curtis Hopkins, who subsequently taught Charles Fillmore, Ernest Holmes, Melinda Kramer, basically all the teachers of New Thought were taught by Emma Curtis Hopkins. And so when medical science got to where it was, where you could basically go into a hospital and get a pill that would solve it, then the mind cure movement really kind of lost its teeth. And what you started to see was people take that attention and focus it on money. And so then you see the rise of Wallace Wattles, Napoleon Hill, Robert Collier, all of these early thinkers. Harry, I want to say Harry Hamlin, but I actually don't know where he is in the timeline. But you see this in the early 1900s. This let's talk about health and healing and spiritual healing is still there, But now you get the movement of what ultimately becomes called the prosperity gospel. And I'm way off on the tangent. So the point is that I purposely stayed away from that because that's a whole other area to focus on. I think it's some powerful. Okay. That's some some powerful stuff. Just know that you have the ability that if you have friends in the hospital or friends that you want to pray for, that you can represent them in your mind as whole and perfect and complete, and have influence in their ability to receive healing. Lisa says, thank you, Sherri. Make reading the chapter clear. I love Neville too. Yvonne says, I have a mindfulness presentation this Saturday, and I see my presentation touching people's lives. Yes. The book, Alita, is called The Roads to Truth. The Roads to Truth. And she does an excellent job. Reverend Mary was the person who turned me on to this book. It's an excellent book on what they were studying, what they were exploring. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. You see how far we have almost kind of stepped away from that and this focus on material goods when that's really not where it started. Joe says, I've seen my health getting better by holding the thought for about a month now. Yes. Thank you so much for tonight. I bless you. I release you to have the most amazing week possible. Please take a look at the, what is the chapter? The Law of Thought Transmission. The Law of Thought Transmission in Neville Reader. And also start to give some thought about where you guys want to go to next, because we got about 2 more chapters left in there. We can go anywhere. We can do more Neville, so always welcome, or we can go somewhere else. All right. Have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you guys later. God bless.